Why'd you do that? This is a low chaos playthrough. Today, gameranx brings you 10 things we don't want in Dishonored 2. Number 10, we don't want a similar length and difficulty of the original. Now, Dishonored is absolutely one of my favorite games of all time. The world, the lore, the art direction, the gameplay, it's hard to find things that I actually have a beef with. But for a game this good, it's astoundingly short and easy, especially if you've played it a couple of times. Games can never be perfect, but Dishonored is very close. And one of the things just keeping that slightly out of its reach. It needs to be tougher, at least on the tougher difficulty levels. I'm not saying that easy games shouldn't exist. I completely love Journey as well. I'm saying Dishonored shouldn't be one of them. The potential for complex usage of the systems developed in even the first game, let alone how they would have evolved in the second, has a very high ceiling. I for one would love to see that potential explored much further, and I'd also love for my time in the Empire of the Isles to last a bit longer. Number 9, the same oversimplified chaos system. Now, the idea of Dishonored was your actions had an effect on the world itself. This is fantastic, and I do not want that to change. The chaos system needs to remain, however, it can't be so black and white. Killing one dude you accidentally land in front of shouldn't have been the deciding factor over whether or not Dunwall was enveloped in a plague. And sometimes it actually could boil down to one guard, because that one guard would screw up the threshold for the level, which that was too many levels that you screwed up the threshold for, and that's that. Plague time. And I understand that a game is a loop of mathematical instructions, and I understand why thresholds and criteria are what we rely on for certain outcomes in games. Killing a piece of trash from time to time, and I mean like an awful human being, and there were more than a few of them in the world of Dunwall, probably wouldn't plunge the entire country into a state of chaos that descends into a plague. Give me a little bit of that sweet gray area, Arcane. Gray area. Also, how about some kind of indicator that tells us when we do something that affects the game outcome? Number 8, unbalanced gameplay. Partially a result of number 9, we have a ton of awesome, lethal abilities and weapons, and using them just gives us the bad ending. I don't understand. Why include those things in the game if you're not supposed to use them? And don't be like, well, it's a morality choice, because no, it's not a morality choice. This is not a realistic scenario and can't be mistaken for one. This is a fantasy world, where you have mystical powers that were bestowed upon you by some random dude that looks like at one point in time he really liked the band Muse, which nothing against them, they're great, but I mean, you know exactly what I mean when I say that. I'm not saying that games can't talk about morality, and I'm also actually not saying that they can't have any effect whatsoever on your actual morality, albeit mostly in smaller ways. Art does not make you into something that you weren't already, but I tend to do what I would do in real life the first time I play a game, and then I like to see what happens when I don't act like me. Because Dishonored is sold as a title where your choices have drastic effects on the reality in-game. Of course I want to see the alternative to how I would act. And while we're talking about unbalanced gameplay from the original, stuff that we want to see changed, how about some better AI? Like, there's more than a few times I just walked right into a room and no one noticed me. Number 7, there is no co-op in the original. Let's get that changed post-haste. Come on, can you imagine dual takedowns? Can you imagine the stealth gameplay with 2 players? Can you imagine where Arcane Studios, who are frigging experts in level design for the mechanics that they've created, coming up with new paths that could be used when there are 2 players? Can you imagine all the possibilities if there are 2 people playing this game? I mean, we've got 2 protagonists now, it makes sense. Let's do it. They don't even really have to change the mechanics to accommodate 2 players. I mean, I actually can't think of a better game for co-op than Dishonored. Come on, Arcane, let's do this now. Number 6, something we really don't want in Dishonored 2 is just some new powers in addition to the old ones, rather than evolution. It would be awesome if the possibilities were more open with the powers in the game, whether it's through upgrade trees, collecting new items, crafting, whatever. I know that's in every single game now, but I would probably accept it in another one. The powers of the first game were some of the smoothest, best executed powers in any video game. I mean, in my opinion, Dishonored, gameplay-wise, is basically what BioShock Infinite wanted to be. And I love BioShock Infinite, that's not an insult. It's just very high praise of Dishonored. I mean, even story-wise, Corvo and Emily would likely have both had these powers for some time at this point. They should have mastered and developed them further than the first game. I will say I do have trust in Arcane as far as this goes. I have a feeling that they aren't just going to throw in some new powers and say, look, it's Dishonored 2. But that doesn't mean that a billion other games haven't done that already. Number 5, just leaving the exact same movement model. Now that's not saying the movement in Dishonored isn't cool, but for what it is, it's a little bit basic. What would be really fantastic is if they started incorporating some free running elements into it. Think about how cool Mirror's Edge would be if you had Blink. Note, I'm not saying they need to add Blink to Mirror's Edge to make it cool, it's already cool. But it's already a very fluid game, and the addition of some parkour moves wouldn't mess that up in any way. In fact, it would serve to make it more fluid. And think of the speed runs. Number 4, we don't want an open world. The reason Dishonored works so well is its levels are designed like courses. It's the same reason why when a Sonic the Hedgehog game works, it works so well. And it's also the reason why Sonic the Hedgehog should never be an open world game. Dishonored plays to the mechanics that it created for itself in such a perfect way, and it rightly puts you in the middle of an obstacle course related to those powers. The design feels so right. And while a longer game would be fantastic, please don't dedicate the resources and the time to making something that's going to be less detailed than Dishonored. So much of this would just be reduced if Dishonored was made an open world game. Number 3, a total lack of customization. Now, I'm not talking about the bone charm system or anything like that. What I mean specifically is there needs to be a level editor in the second game. Can you imagine being able to load up new Dishonored levels that people have made? Would massively expand the replay value of the game, especially if they added some free running elements. Can you think of the obstacle course type stuff that people would come up with? People understand why Dishonored is great, and those people would make great level designers for Dishonored. Throw in some leaderboards, and in my opinion, you have the best competitive multiplayer type situation that Dishonored could have. Disclosure, this may be an unpopular opinion, but yes, that includes over death matches. Number 2, really don't want to see the same save system as the original game. Basically, if you beat a level, cool, you moved on to the next level. If you wanted to play the other level again, it destroyed your whole game. You had to start from that level. You couldn't just go back and play it again. That basically destroyed your save. If there's anything I can actually say I actively really hate about Dishonored, that's it. And number 1, I will not be able to stand it if Arcane goes back on when they said what you saw in the announced trailer you can do in the game. Now, Arcane has gradually released info for its fans on its own message boards and said that if you've seen it in the trailer, you can do it in the game. Now, this is a pretty hefty order. The trailer is really action-packed and very high concept. Not to mention, devs often say things like this, especially devs that have to deliver a product that builds on the expectations of a previous product. When devs make claims and then go back on them, or downgrade them, or change things and stuff like that, it's very disappointing, and I hope that Arcane doesn't go down that path. If you like this video, or you're just as excited about Dishonored 2 as we are, please click the like button. And if you're new to GameRanx, make sure you click subscribe. We put up new videos every single day that we work very hard to make worthy of our viewership. We'd like to invite you to that viewership. It's a good ship, and it will not sink. Also, if you're subscribed, you get to see them before other people do, generally. Anyway, thanks a ton for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.